trial they were going through in their life. And the reason they were going through this trial was mainly because you could see how God was beginning to shape and mold him into the person he wanted to be. And I think many of us, as we think about life and we think about what's happening around us, especially in light of the world today, that trials are right in front of our face. So I wanted to do this series on trials, and today is basically truth number 2. Last week we talked about truth number 1. Truth number 1 was the desert and the dark seasons in your life may be the most essential part of your spiritual development and may serve as a precursor to God revealing his plans that initiate a radical work in your life. For me, I can tell you right up front that I have seen God do a radical work in my life through dark seasons. And even though those dark seasons were not comfortable, they were most of the time very frustrating, I would not go back and do it any other way, because it has brought me to this place where I trust the Lord that much more. Today, truth number 2 is you are always the right person for the job when God is a recruiter. And there's 3 things I want to talk about in light of this truth. It is believe, obey, and you're not alone. That's something we need to understand when it comes to trials, is that first of all, we need to believe. We need to believe that God knows what he's doing. We need to obey what he's trying to teach us through that trial. And we need to understand that we're not alone in these trials. So let's just dive into this session of truth number 2. You are always the right person for the job when God is a recruiter. The first thing, believe. I love this story about Moses, because Moses is someone who is just for the last 40 years has pretty much wandered in the wilderness. Isn't it interesting? He's going to end up wandering in the wilderness again. But he's wandered in the wilderness. He's taking care of sheep. And the reason he's taking care of sheep is because he's killed an Egyptian. And really, he started a whole new life. And God comes to him and says, I want you to go back. And this is what Moses says. He says in Exodus 3:11, who am I? Why would you want me to go back? Do you remember what I did? They know what I did. So when I go back, they know that I killed an Egyptian. They may put me in a prison, all these types of things. And Moses needed to be helped. Basically, he needed help understanding that God was there and that he needed to believe in God. So God gives him all the way through chapter 3, as Moses continues to make excuse after excuse after excuse. And God says, I am here. Believe me, I know what's best. I'm telling you to go. That trial you went through was something I was using for my plan and to shape you into who I wanted you to be. And even though it's been just about 40 years that he's been taking care of this sheep, God has been using those 40 years to teach him how to take care of sheep. And now he's going to lead those sheep into the promised land. So the second part here is that we need to obey. When God says to go, why is it that we assume that he doesn't know what is best for us? I think many times we're just sitting here waiting, and God has been telling us to go, get off your butt, go. But for whatever reason, there's a trial that's taking place in our life that's keeping us and preventing us from doing that. And that was Moses. Moses was like, well, the trial in my life was that I killed this Egyptian, and if I go back, then what's going to happen to me? If I go back, am I really worthy to lead? I'm not a leader. I've been taking care of sheep. And we automatically assume that for whatever reason that God doesn't know what he's doing. But when God says to go, he tells us to go. I think the hardest thing or hardest lesson for me in the last couple of years is that we left a church that we loved dearly. And when God told us to go, it wasn't, it was hard. Initially, it was hard. It was like, why in the world would you even suggest that it was time for us to go? Everything's going good. This doesn't make any sense. And then when we did go, then the trials really started to compound. And the reason those trials started to compound was because God was trying to teach me something, but also because Satan didn't want me to go. And he wanted to discourage me when I got there, up to the point of losing my job for a few months, getting laid off. And really, God was just using that to shape me into trusting him, to understand that I can obey him because he does know what is best for me. So when God says to go, why is it that you assume that he doesn't know what is best for you? The third thing we want to talk about is that in this truth number 2 is that you're not alone. Exodus 3:12, God says to Moses, "But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. And when you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." He's saying, understand something. I'm not telling you to do something that I'm not going to go with you to do. But isn't it amazing how discouraged we get and frustrated we get because we really don't understand this truth? When God tells us to go, he's going. He's going with us. And just so you know, when he does tell us to go, Satan does not want us to go. So he's going to do everything he can to distract us from going. And so we need to know this truth. We need to understand that guess what? When God tells us to go, this is when the battle begins. This is when the trials are going to start happening. But understand too that he's not going to leave us during these trials, that we're not alone. He's going to take care of us, and he's going to give us the tools we need to understand how to do that role. So when you think about truth number 2, you're always, understand this, you are always, I don't know how many times I need to repeat this, but you are always the right person for the job when God is the one recruiting you. See, our world that we are living in today is compounding us with specific trials, questioning our understanding of truth, questioning grace, questioning mercy, questioning God, questioning why in the world would God be doing all of these specific things? Why are people dying in Europe? Well, understand something. We don't all totally understand what God is doing. But we can understand that God wants to do something through us. So when you're going through a trial, understand some specific truths. And today, as you think about what is taking place in your life, understand this truth that we talked about today. You are always the right person for the job when God is the recruiter. This is Chip Nightingale. Yes, you can lead, because guess what? God wants you to lead. Hope you enjoyed this time together. And next week we're going to talk about truth number 3. And I think it'll be a huge encouragement to you as well. Looking forward to seeing you next week. God bless and have a great